Song of the Brook, right? So, or we talk it as the Brook, the full text of it. Uh, the Brook is a poem which is written by Alfred Lord Tennyson, so British poet. Uh, so who made the poem and penned it, the Brook, in the year of 1886. So just 6 years before his death. The poem is a ballad. Ballad means a story which is written in the form of poem, right? So in which the speaker stated about the brook, or you called stream, itself undertakes a long and winding journey. It means what undertakes a long journey, the brook or stream, right? So it undertakes a long and winding journey across the countryside to join up with a large river. So this poem is very famous, right? It gives us the kind of a moral. It tucked inside the seemingly sweet poem about a little stream that are darker, right? More poignant themes of death, human impermanence. Human impermanence means something which is not permanent, but at the same time, Brook is taken the form of a human, right? And nature's indifference to humankind. Although the poem also emphasizes nature's sheer beauty, that called as a complete beauty, the poem's most notably or called as a unique characteristic is its refrain. For men may come and men may go. Refrain means that called as a repetition of the line. For men may come and men may go, but I go on forever, which appears in the poem 4 times throughout the poem and captures both the, fleetingness or called as a means passing quickly of human life and the constancy of nature. That is what means you would find out in this particular poem. Now let's move to the, means the idea behind this poem and the text of the poem. So the poem begins with the idea called as I come from haunts of coot and herd. I make a sudden sally and sparkle out among the fern to biker down a valley. So the speaker of the poem, the brook itself, it means the brook is narrating itself, explains that what, where it all starts. It states that I come from haunts of coot and hern. It means it explains that it is started out in a body of water where coot is referring to the birds. So birds called coot and heron often gather, right? I make a sudden sally. So, and then after it is stated, suddenly the brook rushes forward. I make a sudden rally means called as a means suddenly the brook rushes or moves forward and sparkle out among the fog. So the sunlight shines on the water as the brook weeps through greenery that grows beside the stream bank. Now you know that when we talk about the small lake or the river that goes from one particular place to the other particular place, so and then after it merges into the river or ocean, Now, both side of the lake, you would find out the means uh, edge is present, and on the edge of it, what do you find out? You would find out greenery vegetation, that may be small grasses, or maybe called as a trees, or maybe you would find out the daffodils, flowers also. So those of the things were covered. To biker down a valley, it means the brook then flows gently into a valley. To biker down means that called as a flows gently into a valley. The poet then moves to the second stanza and states that by 30 hills I hurry down. So the poet states by 30 hills I hurry down means now once the brook gains the momentum, right? The brook tumbles down many hills. Tumbles down means what? Now it covers many hills that come across, or that come means come through it, or slip between the ridges, and or slip between the ridges means and seeps through the narrow crevices. Narrow crevices means small cracks on the hilly areas or mountainous areas on some of the hillsides. So it says that means once it gets the speed of the water or the brook itself, then after the brook tumbles, jumps down many of the mountainous hills and moves through the narrow cracks um, that found on some of the hillsides. By 20 thirds a little town and half a hundred bridges. So while it covers means many hills, while it means covers the narrow crevices on some of the hillside, along the way the brook passes. What what does the brook pass? The brook passes several villages, right? That's called as a 20 thorps a little town. It means that called as the brook passes several villages and a small town and half a hundred bridges, and also flows underneath lots of bridges. So that's what it is. It says. So till last by Philip's farm I flow to join the brimming river. So finally the brook means glides, that called as a moves past a farm that belongs to a man whose name is called Philip. So to join the brimming river, the brook is on its way to be absorbed by the river, so or merge with the river, so which is already huge and overflowing, and with that the brook merges. The brook claims that for men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. So that is what the claim the brook makes here, that while humans' life, which is a short, impermanent, that not permanent, the brook itself will always endure, or called as a moops, right? It does not have the ending. So that's what the means a poet states when the poet goes to the second stanza, or the brook tells here as a narrator, right? So the brook moves to the third stanza and states that with many a curve my banks I freight, by many a field and fallow, and many a fairy foreland set with willow weed and mallow. So the third stanza, first line or first couple of line, so states that with many a curve my banks I freight. It indicates that the brook moves in a zigzag path, and it also the stream bank and passes many meadows and ploods. Ploods of what? Ploods of farmland. both used and left to rest. So that's what the poet says, that with many a curve or many zigzag move, means the stream or the brook passes many meadows. Meadows means called as a uh, uh, grassy land, and also plots of farmland which have been means which have been used and which have been left also, right? Some of the, are you there, Aryan?
Yes, sir.
Hmm. So now that's what the poet says here, means the brook states that, means how it also flows alongside land that seems to belong to fairies. And it is stated, no, and many a fairy foreland set. It means it also, the brook also flows alongside land that seems to belong to fairies. So it's a landscape or it's a picture spotted with the greeny leafy plants and the delicate blossoms. So you would find out that when Brook states that how it goes, where it crosses, so the the Brook also points out about, means what are the things present when it crosses different path, right? So, in the next stanza, the poet says, I chatter, chatter as I flow to join the brimming river. For men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. So, the poet wants to point out, I chatter, chatter as I flow. So, while rushing or moving along, the brook makes little trickling noise as it travels to the almost overflowing river. So, and then after it merges with the another river or called as the ocean. For men may come and men may go, but I go on for forever. The brook again reminds the readers or the listeners that human life is passing quickly, but the brook itself is permanent, right? It doesn't have any ending. The poet moves to the another one, and in another stanza the poet the brook narrates that I wind about and in and out. I wind about and in and out, with her a blossom sailing, and here and there a lusty trout, and here and there a grayling. So the brook meanders through the countryside. So it again says that passes through the countryside in the motion of zigzagging across the landscape. So with here a blossom selling, it points out those flowers, they are drifting along with its waters. Drifting means called as a, means bending one side, or called as a floating along with its waters, because when the water crosses, so at the same time it also means takes other things with it. So likewise here what happened, those of the flower uh, flower plants which are at the side of the brook or stream, so they were also moving towards the, or they were also drifting with the movement of the water. Then after it is stated, and here and there a lusty trout. So in the brook itself, a few particularly big fish, right? Hearty trout means that called big fishes, big fish, and some freshwater fish calling or called as a called graylings, right? So those fish means also move with the brook. The poet moved to the next stanza and said that, and here and there a foamy flake upon me as I travel with many a silvery water break above the golden gravel. So occasionally the brook's water means, while moving at the same time bubbles up. right? Bubbles up means water bubbles. Water bubbles up and also create a kind of a foams as it journeys towards the what river. So here and there a foamy plague upon me as I travel. So it also says that with many a silvery water break, it indicates the surface of the brook sometimes forms little waves with many a silvery water break. Water break means that called as a waves that crash melodically on top of the pebbles. Pebbles means called as a small rocks which are creating the hindrance or barriers to the water or to the brook. And when it moves, it makes a means little waves that crash or hit melodically or beautifully on top of the pebbles above the golden gravel and sand down below in the stream bed. So in the next stanza, the poet says, and draw them all along and flow to join the brimming river. So for men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. So draw them all along means what? Now, while the movement of the water, it carries whatever comes with it, right? So the vigorous or the huge power carries with the brook, pulls the pebbles, flower petals means that called as a flower plants, which are also drifting, and the fish that called as a trouts or fresh fish along with it. So draw them all along and flow to join the brimming river. So it moves to join up with the large river. So again, the Brook stated, for men may come and men may go, but I go on forever, which indicating that while humankind's time on earth is short and temporary, the brook will continue to live on with no end in sight. So the next one, I still by lawns and grassy plots, I slide by hazel covers, I move the sweet forget-me-nots that grow for happy lovers. The brook quietly, you know, quietly creeps, right? I still by lawns and grassy plots. It means the movement of the brook seems like very quiet without having any noise. It moves, means creepy or called as like a creepy creature, and it passed the meadows, grassy lands, and the fields that carpeted, decorated, or spread with the grass, and slips through densely planted hazel trees that shade the landscape. So you would find out when the brook narrates, I still by lawns means I move quietly through the lawns that called as a carpeted with the grassy land, grass, and also sleeps through the huge planted hazel trees that shed or that put the means shed and as well as make the scenery beautiful. I move the sweet forget-me-nots that grow for happy lovers. So I move the sweet forget-me-nots means the movement of water or the sound of the water nudges wildflowers, right? So called that don't forget me that grow along the stream bank, right? So those of the beautiful means picture of the wildflowers. So they also move and they also means witness the movement of the brook. The brook says these particular wildflowers are meant for people who are blissfully in love, who are means who are called as a happy lovers. For them, those wildflowers are means a present. So, and the brook states that means while it moves through them. So the brook reminds or remembers that the how these wildflowers means say bye to it, right? So the poet also stated in the next stanza that I sleep, I slide, I gloom, and I glance. I sleep, I slide, I gloom, I glance. Among my scheming swallows, make the netted sunbeam dance against my sandy shallows. So I sleep, I slide, I gloom, I glance. It means the brook describes how the brook moves along quietly, right? Sometimes looking dark and murky at the night time. So, and sometimes gloomy. Gloomy is called as a sad. So the brook, the stream describes that when how it moves means, like a very quietly, right? So sometimes looking dark and means murky, gloom and glance. So gloom and glance means called as a looking dark or sad, and murky means unclear, not looking clear. So other times the light playfully bounces in the daytime or afternoon time. The rays of the sun shines on the water of the brook, so bounces of the stream, or perhaps the stream bounces of the river bank. So sometimes the stream moves or hits with the pebbles and create the waves. Sometimes it's also the means rays of the sun shines after heat means in an afternoon time or in the daytime. So sometime the waves of the water also shines among my scheming swallows, means among my scheming swallows means that called as all the while birds called swallows barely brush the water's surface as they search for food, right? So among my scheming swallows, so you would find out that the brook narrates that means all the while birds called swallows barely brush the water's surface as they search for food. So who search for food? The birds. So where they search for food now means water's surface, and because of the movement of the brook, so means barely means these birds found at the means on it, you can say. I make the netted sunbeam dance. So during the daytime, the sunlight shines through the foliage. Foliage means called as a shines through the foliage. Foliage means that called as a dense, and also trees that covers with the branches and leaves, which are called as a dense, and through them the sign of the or the rays of the sun means put on the water that make the sign also. So and it presents uh, through the presence on the stream or called as on the brook. I make the naked sunbeam dance against my sandy shallows. So the sunlight shines through the foliage that surrounds the stream, means casting a oven. Casting means called as a that called as a creating a kind of a picture, a oven pattern on the surface of the water. It reflects the means a sign of the rays of the sun reflects on moving surface of the water. The sunlight looks like it is dancing on the water playfully upon the brook's sandy shallow water. So that is why it is stated, I make the naked sunbeam dance. So means I allow the beautiful rays of the sun when it puts on me. So at the same time means it seems like dancing against my means what? Against the brook's sandy shallow water. I murmur under moon and stars. I murmur under moon and stars in brambly wildernesses. So the water makes murmuring. Murmuring means low, quiet sounds. So under moon means during the night time. So when the sky is covered with the stars and moon, so the water goes peacefully, makes a low, quiet sound as it travels. So it moves past a forest filled with the prickly shrubs. So prickly shrubs, it indicates that Bamberley wilderness, which is indicating that the forest covers with the small, small grasses and also means wild plants, all such kind of a things. I linger by my shingly bars. I linger by my shingly bars. It means the brook, right, slows its pace, right, when it comes to a sandbank heaped with little pebbles. I loiter round my cresses. I loiter and spends another unhurried movement. Unhurried movement. Unhurried means that called as a slow movement, swirling around the leafy greens, such as watercress that grow in the shallow water of the stream. It is also stated, and out again I curve and flow to join the brimming river. And out again I curve and flow to join the brimming river. It says that again, once again, the brook continue its journey, winding journey. Why? Not to merge with big river. The brook reminds listeners again and again and again that for men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. It reminds listeners that although individual humans are born and die, right, but the brook is permanent. So that is what the whole poem is all about, where the brook itself is the narrator and describe its journey. So, how its journey is, what are the things it crosses. So, means what does those of the or what do those of the things indicate? So, it is the kind of a poem that brings out the themes about mortal humans versus eternal nature. Mortal humans versus eternal nature means mortal means called as a humans are impermanence, or humans life is impermanence. So means you could not decide that it is immortal. So whereas nature is eternal. So Alfred Tennyson, in his poem The Brook, so states about repetition of for men may come and men may go, but I go on forever. So where the brook emphasizes the central theme of the poem, that human life passing quickly while the brook as part of a larger tapestry of nature, and it will endure forever, it will continue forever. The refrain or repetition that treats humankind as impermanent. So, as individuals who come and who go, and nature as permanent. In fact, the only two verbs associated with humans in the poem are called as a come and go, and suggesting that human life is breezy and short-lived, because it is not going to means it is not going to live forever, and that humans do not endure the way that nature does. So the way nature, right, means shows its permanence, and without having a kind of a means thought of pride, whereas human being is having with such kind of a pride and means uh, trying to compete with the nature. The brook, in contrast, firmly declares. What does it firmly declares? That I go on forever. This shows the permanence is you can say that presented by the way that the brook appears to be constantly renewing, means that called as a fresh itself and changing throughout the poem. So you can say that adapting effortlessly to the surrounding landscape on the journey to the brimming river, the brook makes sudden sally. Sally means called as a sudden movement, sudden speed of movement. So that condenses itself so that it can slip between the ridges. Slip between the ridges means slip between the means which uh, rocky hillside which was cracked and controls itself to fit the landscape as it moves along the twists and turns of the river bank. If you find out that there is a paradox also, such change and adaptability allow the brook to be unchanging. Unchanging means no change on more fundamental level. So it goes on forever. Despite whatever lies in its path, the water of the brook moves constantly. But the brook remains forever a brook. Near the end of the poem, though the brook seems to be slowing down in the second to last stanza, as its sage lingers and loiters, it finds new energy. How does it find new energy? Now, in the final stanza where it says, "And out again I curve and flow to join the brimming river. For men may come and men may go, but I go on forever." The use of word again. So in these lines, further declares or draws attention to the way that the brook will continue to renew itself time and time again. Time and time again. So never stops to exit the way that humans do. So humans exit because of the death, but the brook says that I go on forever. The brook further points out to the passing nature of human life. Passing nature of human life. When the brook moves past, the sweet forget me not that grow for happy lovers. The forget me not is a type of wild flower. Its name hails from a German legend about two lovers walking alongside a river. Seeing the beautiful, prosperous flower on the river bank, the man decides to pick a handful of the wildflowers for his love. As he does so, though he gets swept up in the churning river and calls to his lover to never forget him. So, this myth, this belief imbues or influences Tennyson's uh, to tell that happy lovers with deeper importance. The poem The Brook implies that all things human, both individual lives and the love between means two people, will be moved away by the passage of time and mortality. Passage of time and mortality means it will not leave permanence, while the brook and the nature will live on. So it also known as a what means the beauty and the power of nature. In the brook, Tennyson describes how nature, through though captivating in its beauty. So nature is something which is attracted and captivated in beauty, right? So is at the same time powerful and indifferent. So one side you are stating that nature is beautiful, and the other side you are saying it is mighty and indifferent to the move of humankind, making it worthy of appreciation, respect, and perhaps even human being fear to it. Tennyson uses a lively group, Alfred Lord Tennyson uses a lively group of verbs and thoughtful images to indicate the brook as both beautiful and powerful throughout its journey. The brook describes how it sparkles, bubbles, and makes the netted sunbeam dance. Netted sunbeam, netted means what? Netted is referring to the net, right? So where you will find out when the sun's rays filter through the branches of the tree, or called as through the leaves of the trees. So at the same time means it covers with the netted sunbeam dance. And these positive verbs influence the brook and the wider natural world with a certain playfulness and beauty. Tennyson further indicates nature as being lovely and, through evocative images like the lusty trout means big fish, and the delicate blossom selling. So how the beautiful flowers are means that called as a move through the water, drifting, floating on the water, gently on the water surface. The brook's beauty is even reflected through the various sounds it makes. As the brook chatters over stony waves, the sound of the water means tumbling over rocks, that called as a jump and fall over rocks, rings out like little sharps and trebles, clearly aligning the brook or parallel with the brook with music. Similarly, Tennyson use of onomatopoeia, onomatopoeia, onomatopoeia. So what is that? It is a figure of speech. The word means that many of the brook's actions contain a sort of musical quality, right? As the brook babbles, chatters, and murmurs. Now you find out repetition of the sound, consonant sound, S, right? So as if it were singing. Furthermore, the brook's resilience, or called as lends a certain presence and power. Resilience is also known as a determination to a certain presence and power. It molds, it decorates itself around the rest of the landscape. So it beautifully presented or mixed into the rest of the landscape effortlessly. When it is stated sleeping between the ridges of rocky hills, bumping across the back of stones along the way, so and winding about in and out whenever necessary. Nothing will stand its way. Nobody can make the barrier to it. So whether it is a rocky hills, whether it is a backs of stones, or called as a wind, so they all cannot means create the barrier before it. Even as it highlights the depths of nature, depths. So the deeper part of nature's beauty and power, the poem also weakens that nature is, or underscores that, or mentions that nature is indifferent to humankind. The repetition of "for men may come and men may go, but I go on forever" is known as a refrain, neatly decorated this idea, painting human life as wholly unimportant in compared to the brook. The brook is concerned only with itself and other elements of nature, as it is the evident or witnessed by the brook's frequent repetition of the word "I" and observation. In contrast, the brook barely mentions humans at all. Near the beginning of the nearly beginning of the brook's journey, the brook flows alongside 20 thrups, a little town, and half a hundred bridges. It indicates that in this instance, or in this example, the brook mentioned the spaces that humans have created for themselves on the natural landscape without bothering to accept the human themselves. Moments later, the brook slides past or move slowly past the Phillips farm on the way to the river. Although Phillips farm means the farm belongs to the farmer named Philip. Although it's curious or interested that the brook knows this man's name in the first place, the brook does not stop to explain who Philip is or give him any wider importance. It is not Philip that the brook recognizes, but the farm that will outlive, outlive him, the farm that actually makes the brook beautiful, even as the brook itself will outlive the farm. So another example of the brook's indifference to human appears in the, you can say that, in a line which briefly mention a pair of happy lovers among the wildflowers. So that folded into these lines is an allusion, right? To allusion means what? Allusion means called as a symbolism, or called as a kind of a myth, German myth. So about a man who is swept away in a river while trying to pluck the flowers which have the name called "forget me not" for his beloved. But possibly the result of that person is his death by drowning into the river, making these happy lovers a dark reminder of nature's overwhelming power and callousness toward humans. So, this is what you would find out in the poem called The Brook, right? So, it's interesting uh, to understand the different means, ideas. Even you would also find out means the poetic devices in this poem and figurative language. So whether you talk about allusion, whether you talk about refrain, or you talk about personification, or you talk about onomatopoeia, right? So all these things are clearly describing means Alfred Lord Tennyson's written The Brook, symbolism of what? Beauty and beauty of nature. And it is the means it is the nature versus human being, right? That's what is all about the point. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.